represent the views of this cable station or its staff and management.
Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel.
And is not necessarily represented.
Welcome to the S197 Shelby American GT350 driving review. We're going to take this vehicle out this evening on some streets, back roads, windy mountain roads, and highways to find out if this Shelby American GT350 truly lives up to its iconic name. If you're wondering what a Shelby American GT350 is, click the link above for part 1 of this review, where we dive into what exactly this car is and the history of how it came to be born again for the S197 Mustang model years.
Public access.
First impressions. Shelby American did a great job giving this vehicle the Shelby American experience. I sit here and I actually feel like I'm in a time capsule. I feel like I'm in a 1960s Shelby vehicle, Shelby GT350, GT500. I think a lot of that speaks to the S197 body style and how the lines and the form of the car really seem to fit the Carroll Shelby experience or the Shelby American experience. I think that's why I'm so fond of Shelby vehicles from the S197 body style. In part 1 of this review, we go into more detail about the interior and what exactly makes this vehicle such a raw, authentic Shelby American experience. First impressions are everything, and Shelby American did their job in making this car feel special with all of the badging, the signatures, the leather. It smells like a Shelby. I don't know how else to describe that, but really that's what Shelby American does so well, is give you the Carroll Shelby experience. And this S197 Shelby American GT350 definitely gives you the experience that you're in something special and that this car is as iconic as the name says it is.
This cable station.
My very next impression of the vehicle is I'm actually concerned about the supports in the seats, because this car can handle quite a bit of G-forces on the skid pad. And this thing is built to turn and head onto the track. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm going to have enough side support. I don't quite feel like I'm going to have the support I need, but we do have a harness bar and we do have racing seat belts. We're not going to need those today, but I do think, like the 2013 Shelby American GT350, these could have benefited from some side supports, from some supports around the legs, probably to hold you in place a little better while you're on the track. Okay, the Borla exhaust. This exhaust was custom designed for this GT350, and it has a note unlike any other that I've heard on a Coyote platform, or at least a Generation 1 Coyote platform. The exhaust is deep, it's pure, it's rich, it sounds like a Shelby. Again, Shelby American, 10 out of 10, A+ for giving it that authentic, raw sound. Harkens back to the 60s Shelbys, especially the GT350. The next impression is the Barton short throw shifter. These throws are so crisp and so short. In fact, this may be the shortest throw I've ever experienced, especially in a Mustang. Fantastic.
Consider whether it should be viewed.
Another first impression of driving this car is you immediately feel the Eibach Pro coilover kit. It is so stiff yet accurate that you can tell that this suspension was built for the track. It's just feeling every single nook and cranny in this road. It does provide confidence. I mean, I definitely feel like I have control of the body in the car, and I know what the car is going to do at any time. But at the same time, I don't know if you could drive this every single day with the suspension settings being this stiff. And these are non-adjustable Pro coilovers. So there's that. You're kind of stuck with the suspension setting. These are 8-year-old tires, but even just doing a small pull right here in second gear. This car has a lot of kick. 624 horsepower. This is the unwarranted version. And even there at launch, the suspension felt very controlled. Even at a rolling halfway into the throttle, the suspension still felt well under control. The rear end did not kick out at any time. And even though these tires are old, the traction was there. And I'm actually very impressed with the selection of suspension components that Shelby American chose. Now, we've talked a lot about this being a parts bin vehicle. And yes, you can recreate this car for a small fraction of the price. Get an S197 chassis and start from there. You can literally reduplicate this. However, Shelby American, in my opinion, chose the perfect components to make a perfectly well-balanced S197. It's not the fastest, it's not the lightest, for sure. This is a full-weight car with a stereo system. But at the same time, you're getting a well-balanced and predictable chassis. You're getting just enough power from the 550 rear wheel horsepower on 91 octane so that the car is not overpowered. You know what it's doing at all times, and it's literally at the limit of keeping the body and chassis under control with the amount of power you have. The clutch is a little bit soft. The grab point is a little vague. It is a stock clutch, but other than that, it drives very well. Again, the Barton short throw shifter makes these shifts quick and crisp, and no problem with the clutch or lockout at all so far. Okay, let's hit some windy roads here, test the coilovers. Steering is predictable. It is a little bit light and loose. It's slightly vague and numb at top dead center. But as soon as turn-in begins, the car is incredibly predictable. And I have to, again, point that out to the Eibach Pro coilover kit. The Watts link is obviously keeping the rear end in one place. And let's just see how we handle here on this turn. Okay, once you begin turn-in, the coilovers in the front end really dig down. We do have negative camber settings up front, so that helps as well. They're not track-specific camber settings, just for street driving like this car is set up for right now. Power is always there, always available. Even just hitting these turns at slow speeds, you can tell the coilovers really command this car. There is little to no body roll. Not quite at the level of our Boss 302, which completely is flat around every turn. This car has a little bit of body roll, but it is full weight, and the end links could probably be changed. There could be some other stiffening of the chassis and suspension components that could really nail this thing down and keep it absolutely flat. I would say right now, in terms of staying flat, it's probably an 8.5 out of 10, maybe an 8. Could use a little bit of improvement, but it feels so masterful around these corners with the coilovers. In fact, it just makes it such a pleasure to drive, and the torque is always there with this supercharger. Very impressed with the way the power is delivered in this car. Again, it's not the fastest. It's the 624 crank horsepower tune. Gets about 550 rear wheel horsepower, but it's how it's delivered. It's linear, and it doesn't surge at the bottom, and it doesn't fall off at the top, is what I want to say. It doesn't fall off at the top. It really just always gives power when you need it, where you need it. And you know what? Even though the tires are slightly old, it's handling and gripping very well. The tires just need a little bit of time to get warm, and you can start having a little bit of fun with them. They are the Goodyear Eagle F1s. They're decent tires. I can tell you the one time we had it out at the track before we started getting into the Boss and other cars, we couldn't quite get it to hook up, and that was a little bit disturbing. Again, the coilovers really taking that turn flat. I'm actually very impressed. I thought there'd be a little more body roll. Very, very flat, very stiff, very neutral and balanced, actually. I feel like there for a section of the road, I felt like I was in an S550, GT350. That's how flat and commanding the suspension stayed, and that's how much confidence I had. Coming over the hill here to see the sunset. And we're gonna pull off right here for a second. Take a look at that. Wow, beautiful. So these are 8-year-old tires, but again, we'll give it a pull. it absolutely pulls like a freight train. And in fact, I can see how this is a 3.7, maybe 3.5 to 3.70 to 60, depending on how warm your tires are, and if you can launch this thing properly. There's no launch control in here. It's all driver skill, But you can see where that 3.5 to 3.70 to 60 comes from. The 2.3 baby Whipple on here, those little baby lobes, they twist up so fast. They get power to the back so quickly that the torque just hits. There's a solid one-piece drive shaft, so that power's getting to the back. The torque is instantaneous. I really love this baby Whipple, even though it's rear feed, it's an early generation. I really like the way it hits with this car. And after it hits, it stays linear. It really just pulls all the way to the top with predictable power. And again, Shelby American really did a good job in picking the right supercharger mixed with the right suspension components for the weight and character and theme of the vehicle. Oh, it sounds beautiful. You know, and this is one of those cars that's very loud. Everyone that's driven by is looking at it because it says GT350 everywhere. You know, it's a Carroll Shelby vehicle. It's a Shelby American vehicle. It lets you know this is a Shelby. It's all over the car. It's on the hood. It's on the doors. It's on the rear fascia, the front fascia. But I can tell you this, the theme of this car was perfectly met. The goal was met because they built a well-balanced car that excels well in everything. Acceleration, shifting, chassis and suspension, drivetrain, the Shelby experience, it's all there.
Consider whether it should be viewed.
Barton short throw feels great, nice and crisp shifts. Eyebox sport suspension, the pro coilovers feel great, the sway bars keeping the body under control. Hear that Whipple supercharger whine? Some better seats to keep me in place. I don't have the harness belts on right now. Definitely sliding all over the place without harness belts. Recaro seat would be a lot better, but that's okay. Despite that, the car has never felt out of control once. I know exactly what the rear end is doing, thanks to the Pro coilover system and the sway bars, the Shelby Watts Link.
And does not necessarily represent the views of
the Shelby American GT350. There's a lot to talk about here. First, driving mechanics and dynamics. I've been studying this car for quite some time, and it is my belief that Shelby American and Carroll Shelby built this car to be a little bit of everything for everyone. At least for everyone who's a Mustang fan. With not one element of the car overshadowing or overpowering the other, it is a well-balanced, powerful, predictable, neutral, well-stopping, S197 Mustang. It's the complete package for the street, with the ability to do some track days from time to time. Although Carroll Shelby and Shelby American want their customers to love and drive their cars and put miles on them, deep down, I think they knew a lot of these cars would be what you would call garage queens, or at best being driven to Cars and Coffee a few miles down the road, only to be driven home and wiped with a diaper. Where Shelby American and Carroll Shelby really excelled with this vehicle are the street driving dynamics. The Eibach Pro coilover system does offer a very stiff ride, but with the combination of the factory stock OEM bushings and bearings, it really equals out to a predictable, balanced, and somewhat comfortable ride, depending on where you drive it and how often you drive it. For street driving purposes, I think the Eibach coilovers met the perfect combination with the rubber bushings and stock bearings to make a somewhat livable, somewhat stiff driving experience. The braking ability of this vehicle is more than enough for the street. In fact, I would say the brakes are overkill for street driving. But the Willwood, Bear, or Errataspeed combinations that Shelby American installed with this vehicle really helped the S197 stop on a dime. Immediate bite isn't that harsh, but the stopping power is instant. The OEM stock clutch feels great and works well on the street, although we all know that the clutch lends itself to issues with high RPM lockout, missed shifts, etc. However, so far on this GT350, we haven't experienced any high RPM lockouts or missed shifts. In terms of track driving, this vehicle operates, acts, and has mannerisms similar to an S197 with the similar bolt-on components and parts. The one time we had this vehicle out on track, we found the suspension and the body control to actually be very manageable and neutral. The brakes didn't fade thanks to the cooling ducts for the brakes, but we just couldn't get the Eagle F1 tires to hook up. It seemed like even after trying to warm up the tires, we just couldn't get a lot of traction. The skinny Eagle F1 tires just didn't want to grab coming out of an apex or diving into a corner. In this way, I feel like this GT350, trying to be everything for everyone, fails at hardcore track driving for several reasons. I would imagine if Shelby American was really marketing this as a serious track car, I would have wanted billet oil pump gears, crank sprocket, and oil separators to aid in the 12 pounds of boost supercharging going to a stock Generation 1 Coyote engine. When you're road racing for 20 or 30 minute sessions at a time, doing 6 sessions a day, bouncing your engine off the rev limiter constantly, you want to make sure you have strong oil pump gears to solidify any of the Coyote's weaknesses, especially when running 12 pounds of boost with a Whipple supercharger on top. These are some of the primary reasons why I feel like this car was set up for light track duty, maybe once in a while, a few laps around the track, but nothing really serious to protect the engine and collectability of this vehicle. Remember, the more miles you put on a vehicle like this, especially hardened track miles, really diminishes the value of the vehicle. Which leads me into my second reason why I don't think this is a hardened track car built by Shelby American. Vehicles built by Shelby American also have a collectability factor to them. They didn't make many of these GT350s, and I think deep down, they knew many of them would go right to the garage. Very few would actually see the track or track time. Have you noticed no GT350s built by Shelby American have reported MT82 transmission issues or stock clutch issues? It's probably because no one's driving them, and if they are, they're going to Cars and Coffee and driving home. Part of the reason why we're not tracking our GT350 more is really because this car was purchased with collectability in mind. And as soon as we blow this MT82 transmission or stock clutch, which we have experience with in our Boss 302, we then have to change out original OEM parts on our Shelby American GT350, which we really want to avoid doing. Even if we keep it or sell it, we're trying to keep the original parts that came with the vehicle. Tracking it just increases the probability that we'll have to change those parts out. This car just isn't a hardened track car. Even though it's kind of marketed like a track car, it just isn't the vehicle for many reasons you want to go thrashing on the track. One of the last things I will add is Shelby American did a really good job mitigating the live axle issues when it comes to racing on track. The rear end stayed planted, firm, you could drive over the curbs, it didn't upset the rear end, and the rear end didn't break loose at any time. It was predictable and reliable. Whether you're driving this on the street or if you decide to take it out on the track, there's one thing that you're always looking at that really bothers me about this vehicle, and most Shelby American vehicles. I think there's a missed opportunity with the steering wheel. It's bland, it's stock, it's OEM. I think they could at least take out the center cap and put on a snake, do something cool with carbon fiber, I don't know, but I think the steering wheel just really is a dud compared to the rest of the interior in the vehicle. But that's a minor complaint, because when you sit inside this car, you are transported immediately into the Shelby American experience. Complaints about Ford's interior quality aside, I like what Shelby American has done to decorate the cabin and make you feel like you're in something special. All in all, this is a well-balanced S197 Mustang with the Shelby American mojo and magic sprinkled all throughout the vehicle. You get an amazingly capable street vehicle that's slightly stiff, yet still compliant for daily street driving, and a car that can hold its own on track if you get some sticky tires, and oil separators, and oil pump gears, and a crank sprocket. What I've learned about the Shelby American GT350 is it truly is a little bit of everything to every Mustang enthusiast. It's powerful. It has great performance. It has a manual transmission. It has a neutral and predictable chassis. It has excellent stopping power. It has styling, history, and collectability. If you're a Mustang enthusiast and you're looking to pick one up used, you will not be disappointed. And if you decide to mod it, then you have an excellent platform and jumping point to build an amazing vehicle. If you own one of these vehicles and you're hard parking it, I encourage you to get out and drive it once in a while. You might have forgotten just what an amazing driving experience the Shelby American GT350 offers and how rare and underrated this Mustang truly is in Mustang history. Thank you so much for watching. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for checking out these videos. And if you're new here, click the subscribe button, smash the like button, lets YouTube know you want to see more car reviews like this, road reviews, track reviews, everything we have coming up on this channel. Thank you so much again for watching. We'll just edit it out. I can't have me falling over a ladder for the first ever car review for the channel. I mean, no, it's probably the least professional thing you could do.
1, 5, 3, T.